Hey, I'm Jamie with Guitarist, and this is the Les Paul Modern Lite in my hands here, which is the new entry-level USA-built Les Paul. It costs £1,499 and it replaces the popular Les Paul Tribute, which had more of a vintage flavour and was a little bit cheaper. The Tribute has now been discontinued to be replaced by this, and just as a side note, you might want to know that the Les Paul Studio, which is the other sort of very well-known stripped-down Les Paul, will continue in production, and it's only £100 more expensive than this, which is good to know when you figure out what this gives you that the Les Paul Studio might not, or vice versa. So the Modern Lite is a contemporary guitar, and Gibson might be trying to woo younger players with it. Just to refresh your memory, Gibson USA splits its Les Paul models into two groups. The Gibson Original Collection, which are its vintage reissues, and the Modern Collection, which is aimed at players with more contemporary tastes. That's the idea anyway. Despite the name, the Modern Lite has no weight relief as such. It's not got any holes drilled in the body, but its body is quite a lot thinner in depth than that of a classic Les Paul. It's actually just 33mm deep at the rim, so it feels actually a bit more like something like a Melody Maker. That means our review model weighs just under £7, or in metric that's just over 3 kilograms. It's got a mahogany body with a carved top, though the top carve seems relatively shallow compared to more conventional Les Pauls that we've played. Then it's got a Nashville-style tunematic with lightweight aluminium tailpiece. It's got wider than vintage aluminium strap buttons, again hinting at that kind of slightly more modern, rocky emphasis. Has Grover mini rotomatic tuners with kidney-shaped buttons, 22 medium jumbo frets, very much like other Les Pauls in the range. It's got a Graph Tech nut, which is 43.2mm wide. It's very comfortable to play on. And the neck is mahogany, as you might expect, with a slim taper profile that's a good sort of nice handful, but not too chunky. The Gibson logoed 500k pots are wired modern style, and each tone control has a 0.022 microfarad capacitor. One thing to note is that the pickup leads are vintage style single conductor types, so if you fancy adding coil splits, you're going to need new pickups. Speaking of which, the Modern Lite comes fitted with 490R modern classic pickup at the neck, and a 498T hot Alnico humbucker at the bridge. The 490R uses an Alnico 2 magnet with a published DC resistance of 8k. It's about not sort of hot vintage sort of level. The 498T at the bridge uses an Alnico 5 magnet and has a DC resistance of 14.2k. Now that's probably due to thinner wire being used for the winding rather than it being super insanely hot. The guitar, in keeping with its entry-level sort of feel, is finished in satin nitrocellulose and comes in cardinal red, as like the one here, TV wheat, gold mist, Inverness green and rose gold. So you've got some quite zingy custom style colours there to going on with. So it adds a little bit of fun to this kind of entry-level format. And yeah, it's a little bit different. It's certainly not your conventional full gloss 50 style Les Paul, but is it any good? Well, we're going to have a little listen to some sounds and talk a little bit about its sort of playability and things like that, and you can decide for yourself. Before we go any further, just a quick word on signal chain. Today we're using an orange OR30 all-valve head, which is a very nice sort of 70s, quite British flavoured amp. Does nice classic rock tones, and we're plugging the guitar into my pedal board, which has got on it a nice selection of fairly standard drives, delays and reverbs. We're using the J-Rocket 45 caliber Plexi style, our JTM 45 style overdrive. We're also using, by J-Rocket, the HRM pedal, which is a kind of a slightly hotter pedal that's designed to be somewhat Dumble-like. We're using the Boss RE202 Space Echo just to provide a little bit of delay. So we're not going to drench our signal in delay, but you will hear a nice little bit of flattering echo on some of the tracks. And we've also got a Free the Tone Ambi-Space reverb, and just to add a little bit of spring reverb emulation on there, again, just to show this guitar off in a kind of typical real-world scenario of a little bit of light reverb and delay. But you will hear the tones of this guitar ringing out nice and true as well. So that's signal chain. So first impressions of this guitar. It is very light. As mentioned before, it does feel rather like the melody makers that Gibson have offered over the years, in that it is slimmer, the body is less deep, and it's a bit lighter. It has got a bit of an arch on the top, so it isn't quite like a melody maker. It is sort of recognisably a true Les Paul, but it is rather different from the tributes that it replaces in the respect that it has different dimensions, as mentioned, to the body. The rosewood fingerboard and general playability are really nice. No complaints there, and I have to say the pickups are very clear. They seem nice and warm and expressive, and although they are fairly standard fare for Gibson, I've absolutely no complaints about using this. The tones seem quite versatile. It's neither super hot nor underwound vintage style. It's a good sort of middle way option, and certainly they're not pickups to sniff at in any way. And with that, let's listen to some of the tones of this guitar. We'll just play through clean and then with a bit of drive, so you can hear how it sounds with the reverb and the delay switched off. So you've got a really uncoloured listen to some of the sounds it makes. So I'm going to start with clean tones in the neck pickup. You can hear it's just hot enough to just push when you dig in. It will push the amp a little bit, and it's certainly not humbuckers that are just one-trick ponies for high gain playing. Very nice, actually, the clean tone. So this is the in-between setting. No bells and whistles. There's no core taps as mentioned on here. It's just what you see is what you get, in keeping with that sort of stripped down feel. This is the in-between, both pickups on. And then finally the bridge pickup. As mentioned, it's that Alnico 5 magnet instead of the Alnico 2. It's got a little bit more bite and a little bit more push. So yeah, quite a usable selection of tones, and combined with this slender body, it still sounds nice and chunky. There's certainly not a flimsy sound from a guitar that is otherwise fairly stripped back. So let's put a little bit of drive on from the JTM 45 style J-Rocket caliber 45 pedal, just so we can hear those pickup selections again with a little bit of drive on them. So this is the neck pickup once again. I quite like that. The pickup holds together. It's got some poise and composure, which the sort of more entry-level pickups or standard pickups don't always have from every manufacturer. These are really quite nice. Let's go to the middle position again with that caliber 45 drive on. One thing I will say, perhaps it's the sort of utilitarian, stripped back vibe of this guitar, but that cliche of a sort of ballsy telly, which is sometimes spoken of about Les Pauls, you know, they can sound like a big telly, feels kind of a little bit true of this guitar. It has a certain telly-like directness to it. And a decent amount of top as well. Nice sustain, it's certainly not lacking in sustain. Okay, and finally the bridge pickup again with that JTM 45 style drive on. I don't think anyone would find it too hard to get those Blues Breaker, Eric Clapton, Beano album style tones out of this. It's got a nice sort of raucousness to that bridge pickup that goes well with classic valve amps and relatively low gain drive. I am actually going to stick on this HRM pedal, which has got a little bit more drive to it. It's more of, not a distortion, but it's verging on the higher end of overdrive gain. So hear how that bridge pickup handles a little bit more gain. Let's just crank the gain a bit more. Again, I think it holds together quite nicely, that pickup. It certainly doesn't flub out too much, and it retains a good amount of detail as we turn the drive up on that HRM pedal there. So those are the sounds. It's not a especially complicated guitar that way, but it will probably fulfill most of your needs in the manner of other famous two pickup guitars through history do. If the pickups are right, and three sounds could be all you really need. Other little features that are worth noticing: it's got a matching headstock, so the whole headstock is painted the same colour as the body. One thing which some people might take issue with is that the plastics on all of the models are the same colour, so it's black throughout. There's no cream option on anything. There's no zebra coils on any of the models to suit the different finishes. It's all kind of black throughout, which is kind of a cost-saving measure one would imagine, to standardise on that black. It looks good here on the Cardinal Red guitar. These are matters of taste, of course, but whether or not you think you'd rather Gibson had offered a little bit more variety in that department is down to personal taste. But it is £1,500, and you know, that's, whilst it's not megabucks, it is not an insignificant chunk of change. Turning the guitar over, we've got a bit of a belly cut here on the top edge for comfort, but you know, there's the traditional glued in neck joint there, albeit on a somewhat shallower body. Serial number on the back of the headstock, which is just stamped in there. And again, this satin finish, which kind of sinks into the grain a bit so you can see the grain. I always think with these satin finishes, they feel nice. Whether you like the aesthetic of them, they can look a bit sort of basic compared to the full gloss finish, which is rather more expensive to do. It takes a bit more time to get a full gloss on something. That's the reason we probably see satin finishes on these sort of lower end Les Pauls. It's just to sort of reduce the amount of labour that goes into them and keep the price at a relatively sensible level. But if that's not your bag, then you're probably going to want to look upwards, up the range by £100 to the Les Paul Studios, which have the deeper body and full gloss finishes but no binding. So £100 extra for a Les Paul Studio buys you arguably more of the classic Les Paul experience whether that's worth the money to you is, again, a bit of a personal decision. And yeah, that's really all there is to this relatively simple guitar. Do I like it? Yes, it's engaging to play. Its sustain and its tone are good. They are all the things that you would hope from a Gibson. I think as a buying decision, whether you push the button on this or not will probably depend not so much on its feature set, unless you really like the lightweight. If you've got a bad back or something, you might be drawn to it for that reason. I think the real kind of deal breaker or deal maker is going to be whether you really feel you're getting the full Les Paul experience from this somewhat slimmer body and the other relatively plain features on it. But if that doesn't bother you, it's a really sorted, good rock and roll guitar, and certainly not limited or limiting in its sonic potential, regardless of the other features. So with that, we're going to leave you on another little bit of music so you can hear the guitar in context on a track. And I hope you've enjoyed watching this deep dive into Gibson's Les Paul Modern Lite Les Paul. If you've enjoyed it, then hit the like and subscribe buttons, and we'll see you next time.